Today we're looking at talking phrasal verbs. I'm not going to mention any of the phrasal verbs from my ways of talking video, because I put some talking phrasal verbs on that video, so if you want some more, please go to that video. There are loads of phrasal verbs connected to talking, so I'm going to try and put across the meanings of these phrasal verbs. Yeah, I hope I can get across those meanings well, and yeah, we'll talk them over. Yeah, we'll discuss them. So if you reel off a list, if I reel off a list of phrasal verbs, it just means to name all the items on a list. So to reel off this list, I would say put across, get across, put someone through, get through. That is to reel off. It's when you name all the items on a list. You could reel off the names of the people invited to your birthday party and say Susan, Sarah, Tom, George. That would be reeling off the names. Okay, so put across an idea or get across an idea is to convey an idea or message, and you could use this in a number of different situations, but it just means to convey. It's very similar to put an idea forward, but slightly different. When you put an idea forward, you're putting it forward for consideration or selection. So maybe there's a number of different ideas. Maybe the teacher has asked for a number of different ideas about what the class, where the class can go on the school trip, and you put forward your idea for consideration. Maybe you would like to go to the beach, and you put forward your idea for consideration. Okay, if you call someone, maybe you call a business and you want to get in touch with the manager, you might not be able to get through to the manager. They may not put you through. So both of these phrasal verbs means to connect by telephone, and yeah, one's transitive and one's intransitive. Now, get through is pretty similar. It's sometimes used in a metaphorical sense with get through to someone, which means make them understand, especially your feelings. This is very often used in an emotional sense. And so maybe boyfriend and girlfriend have been arguing, and the boy just can't get through to her. He can't make her understand his feelings, and so in the end they split up, they break up, they have an argument. Okay, now I've tried to keep those away from these ones. I'm trying to separate them into sections because I think they're all fairly connected with across and through. Let's look at the down phrasal verbs now with talking. Run someone down, put someone down. Both of those mean insult someone. When you say you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're running them down, you're putting them down. And you're probably bringing them down as well. You're probably depressing them when you say these nasty things. You're getting them down. It also means to get depressed. If you talk down to someone, you disrespect them. You say bad things to them. So similar to insult, but I think it's more just disrespectful. You don't actually have to say insulting words to talk down to someone. You can just talk like they're your inferior. So like they are your inferior, they are inferior to you, and then you're looking down on them. I think it's similar to that phrasal verb here. Okay, so negative, very negative with down. Have a look now at the persuading and dissuading and discussing phrasal verbs, because I think persuading is for, dissuading is against, and discussing is more neutral, although we come back to through, which was up here. So if you talk someone around, you persuade them to do something. You can bring them around as well, which means the same thing. It means persuade them to do something. Or you could use the intransitive, they came around, yeah? I tried to talk them into it for a long time, and eventually they came around. So this is the intransitive form for be persuaded, yeah? They were persuaded in the end, they came around. Talk someone into something, it's the same as talk someone around, it's persuade, but here you can actually say what it was you persuaded them to do. So I talked him into coming to my party. The opposite would be to dissuade someone, to talk someone out of doing something. And so you could also dissuade them from a plan. If you try to persuade them not to do something, you talk them out of it. Okay, if you talk something over, you just discuss something. So we're talking over all these phrasal verbs. We're talking through them as well, because I would say talk something through just means discuss in more detail. So if you were having some kind of problems with your colleagues at work, you might decide to talk through these problems. In fact, yeah, sometimes you can have something on this side. It's possible in both places. But you can talk through these problems. You can discuss them in detail. You can go through them. Okay, let's come on to some slightly different ones with at. And what I want you to notice about at, because all of these have at. Not this one, though. Sorry, this one doesn't. We'll talk about that too. But at. It's very often negative at, and it's very often some kind of attack. If someone comes at you with a knife, they're attacking you. If someone runs at you, they're attacking you. If someone throws a ball to you, that's fine. You catch it and it's nice. If someone throws a ball at you, that's aimed at you to hurt you. We also say shout at, glare at, stare at. So there's a lot of other verbs which are nasty or violent that use at. And yeah, I mean, even if you kick the ball to someone, you just pass it in football. But if you kick the ball at someone, you're aiming it at them to hurt them. So at is very often negative and violent. When you get at someone, you criticize them. If you go on at someone, you criticize them. If you keep on at someone, or if you are on at someone, you're criticizing them. You're trying to get them to change their behavior. You're telling them about something in their behavior that you don't like. And in the end, if you criticize them enough, if you keep running them down, putting them down, if you keep getting at them, you might get to them, which would mean upset them. You might get to them. You might hurt their feelings. So to get to someone would be to upset someone. You might say something like this. You might say, even though your parents keep putting you down, don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. Yeah, don't let it upset you. Ignore it. Okay, you can get back at someone, which would be to take revenge on them. Yeah, if you get back at them. And if you talk at someone, then you talk without any dialogue. You talk without them listening to you. It's a very negative word, this. It means talk at someone. It's not like talk to someone, which is nice. It's an exchange of ideas. Talk at someone is when you just talk and talk and talk, and they're not really listening, they're not interested, and you're not even interested that they're not interested. You're just talking at them. Okay, stand up for, this is slightly different. Again, these are all kind of supporting. Stand up for, support someone. Stick up for, support someone. Back someone up, support someone. If you back down, you admit defeat. You surrender in some kind of way. You give in. If you back out, then you have some kind of plan and you back out, usually at the last moment. If you say, I have to back out of that wedding, it means you won't be going to the wedding. You have to back out. You've changed your plans. Okay, if you talk something up, you speak about how wonderful it is. You exaggerate its positive points, its pluses, its advantages. Whereas if you talk something down, you minimize its pluses and its positive points. You pretend that it's not as important or not as great as it actually is. It's very similar to downplay or to play something down. Okay, so they're kind of opposites. Okay, lastly, these ones, if you have someone on, then you're tricking them. It's very similar to kid or joke. And if you say, are you having me on? It means, are you tricking me? Are you having me on? Are you tricking me? Are you making something up? Are you making this up? Are you pretending in some kind of way? And you don't want people to have you on, because if they do have you on and if they make something up and then you fall for it, that means that you are tricked. When you fall for a trick, you are tricked. So don't fall for it. Don't let people have you on and trick you. Okay, another good expression is own up to something, which just means admit. So you need to own up to your crimes if you have committed any. And you can also gloss over something. Now, this is quite an odd phrasal verb, but it's regularly used. I think all English people are familiar with this expression, most of them. You just avoid mentioning the embarrassing details. You avoid bringing up the embarrassing details. So gloss over is usually when something bad has happened and you try not to mention it. That's when you gloss over something. Okay, if you speak out against something, and yeah, that's sometimes a 3-word phrasal verb, because you can say what you're speaking out against. It means you publicly come out against something. You say something publicly when you speak out. So you might decide to speak out against the new legislation which has been proposed by the government because you don't like it. Okay, if you want someone to talk louder, just say speak up. It's another expression. And yeah, one which I've said in another lesson with phrasal verbs with come out with, it's like mention, but it's not exactly the same, because you bring up a point, you bring up a subject, you bring up a topic, you mention a theme, a subject, but you come out with usually silly remarks or comments. They're usually negative when you come out with. Okay, that's a lot of phrasal verbs. Please, if you have any questions about these phrasal verbs, do put them under the video. But please don't forget that if you would like examples of these phrasal verbs, there are hundreds in the dictionaries. Please look at Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. That's a good one. I recommend it. Or the Cambridge Dictionary will have lots of examples of these being used. Okay, thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe if you've enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you all soon.